They're all wearing seersucker, which is a crime in itself.
The Georgia Virtue presents the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. Welcome to episode 212. Coming up this week, we have The Slap, Chris Carr being Chris Carr, permitless carry, slow learning politicians, and crazy parity. I'm Dave Roberts. With me is my partner in this endeavor, writer, journalist, dog mom, owner of the Georgia Virtue, Jessica Szilagyi.
Hey, Dave.
How are you?
I'm great. That was a great intro.
Was it?
Good job.
I actually wrote it down this week, so
You didn't
apparently
just wing it?
Apparently, I can't go off script.
It's okay.
So I'm going to need a teleprompter.
That'd be hilarious.
Well, you know what Rush used to call Obama's teleprompter was POTUS, or TOTUS, teleprompter of the United States.
Nice.
So, we have a complaint, apparently.
Well, Tiffany complains about you every week, almost. But this week, I'm only bringing it up because she is reinforcing something about that I knew. Like, okay, so last week when we talked about the gangsta segment, you mentioned the pimp and hoe parties, and I have never heard of that until you mentioned it. I've never been to one, never heard of it, but I didn't say anything because, I did grow up in Alpharetta. However, she hadn't heard of it either, so I think you're the only one with, like, the pimp and hoe party thing.
You've never gone to or never heard of a pimp and hoe party at a sorority or a fraternity?
No.
Well, I suppose if Tiffany hasn't heard of it, nobody has. No, man, it's a thing. You can even rent the costumes or buy costumes from now on the internet for big pimp hats and all that stuff.
You would know.
In fact, I would know.
Well, I just want to clarify.
Pimping is not easy.
Well, oh god, I thought that there was something wrong with me perhaps because I hadn't heard of this, but I was comforted by the fact that she had not either. So
she complains about me every week.
Mm-hmm, she does.
I mean, I don't blame her. The list of women complaining about me is getting longer and longer.
Well, naturally.
So we have The Slap heard round the world. Will Smith, Chris Rock, and G.I. Jane.
It really was the slap heard around the world. I didn't hear about it till Monday morning early because when I woke up, like, every Facebook post was talking about it, and I was like, what happened? And then, of course, the thing that irritated me, because I'm not one of these, like, pop culture lovers, I guess, is that the U.S. managed to censor it in real time while Japan and Australia and all these others saw the entire thing, heard the entire thing, had no censorship, and we claim to be like these advocates of free speech and everything, but, we don't even let reality unfold in front of us, and people think that's not a big deal. But anyway.
The funny thing is, Will Smith was laughing until he looked over at his wife.
He was.
And then he just said, look, this is the sign of a unhinged marriage. And apparently they've been pretty public about their marital problems and, whether or not they're in an open relationship. And she was, sleeping with one of her son's friends and being seen out in public with him. Not even like having a shameful affair like a decent person, like out in public with him. Appearing. She was also wearing a dress that you can't walk in. It looked like paper mache. And I didn't watch it live. I found it like you did next day at opening Facebook. But on the news, they kept showing the red carpet, and she can hardly move in this thing, this giant dress with a huge train that just. She looked like a princess cake topper.
Nice.
For a little girl's table, a little girl's party.
Nice.
But the joke was innocuous. Chris Rock claims he didn't know about her alopecia, which is quite possible. It's also
I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I actually did read something about it. It came across Facebook that the reason she shaved her head, and I read the article because I thought it was interesting that it was about her 50 diamond tiara or something she was wearing, and why she got that, which is fine. I mean, she was tired of wearing wigs, and look, I totally appreciate it. But first of all, you're Hollywood. You have to have thicker skin. Secondly, if you're going to be at one of these award shows, you know the comedian is up there to roast people, to make fun of them.
Yeah, that was what was odd to me, was that this is like something that's always done. And I feel sure that the line has been crossed in the past. But
Don Rickles.
Go ahead.
Don Rickles used to do it.
Yeah, I think the thing that bothered me the most is that, other than the censorship part, but about the actual slap and whatnot, is that, let's just say that you did know and you crossed the line and it was an offensive joke, or it was a joke that, everybody thought was inappropriate. I really just don't think that gives you the right to put your hands on somebody. And it wasn't even, he was defending allegedly someone else too. Like, people were like, oh, like there were girls posting on social media, oh, I am so proud of Will Smith, and I love a man that will defend a woman, and he wasn't taking any shit, and this, that, and the other. No, he showed his. Let's say that Chris Rock is, in the wrong. Okay, so now you have two clowns on stage, and everyone thinks Will Smith's the hero.
No, and he was the guy that did it right. He was the guy that had a rap career, never cursed. He was the guy that did it right. Now, I know his children are nutcases, his wife's a nutcase, and he's probably a nutcase too, but professionally, he always did it right.
And everyone liked him. Yeah.
Everybody my age watched The Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is, he, in 20 seconds, destroyed the view that people have of him, of doing it the right way, of not being violent. None of his music is about violence. It's all fun, happy music. Even the later stuff with Miami, or when he was younger, Parents Don't Understand. It was lighthearted. The same time that NWA is coming out, same time that we start to see Eminem start to emerge, Will Smith is still doing clean stuff. And he does this goofy TV show that, kids my age certainly watched and were invested in, and always had a good moral of the story. And I understand we don't know these stars. Bill Cosby, the same thing. Everything he did was clean up until the camera shut off, and then he was an awful, horrible human being. I'm not comparing the two, but just saying we don't actually know these people. Sure. But he destroyed his image in 20 seconds.
Well, and there's a lot of people who said that it was staged, and they thought it was because Chris Rock was laughing right before he was slapped and stuff. I don't think it was staged. If you look at everyone's faces in that room, some of them are quite funny actually, but I did not gather that was. It was an awkward response after.
Well, he was laughing when he got up on stage because I don't think Chris Rock was expecting to be assaulted. He thought Will Smith was coming up there to make a joke or something. Yeah, something like that. To be this Will Smith that we know, not go up and smack the taste out of Chris Rock's mouth. By the way, Chris Rock has sold out. Like his show in Atlanta sold out immediately after that. But the problem is people take the social cues from these idiots.
Right.
And they think it's now appropriate if you're at a comedy show and you hear a joke that you don't like or something that offends you, or if I'm sitting in the front row and they say, look at this fat SOB over here, that you're justified in standing up and assaulting the performer.
Right.
It's comedy. And look, these people do not, when I say these people, Hollywood stars do not like being made fun of. They don't. They pretend because they're actors, but they are very thin-skinned. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. It was stupid, but Will Smith certainly. Look, this won't affect Will Smith. He's got more money than God.
I think he was disappointed with himself after the fact. I really do.
Well, he sure as hell partied afterwards.
Well, yes, but I mean, like, when he went up there for his award, for after, well, I don't know how long in time after it was, like, in real time, but, and during the commercial break, like, showing him with Denzel and everything, he just seemed,
What's made it worse is now the jokes and memes are out on his wife, showing Will Smith holding the Oscar, saying, to calm him down, they gave him a miniature statue of his wife. Are things you can do, are things you can't do. Make fun of Jada Pinkett Smith's hair. Things you can do. Sleep with Jada Pinkett Smith.
The memes are horrible, like horribly funny, but they're horrible. And my whole thing is like the Oscars is not something that everybody watches. I mean, almost everyone in my circle, close circle, didn't know about it from watching it. They knew about it from hearing about it and then looking it up. And so his response, I think, generated 10 times more attention to the fact that somebody was mocking her hair or lack thereof than it would have if he hadn't reacted that way.
I didn't know they were on. Now, look, when we had 3 TV networks and you watched shows in real time and before DVR and all that stuff, you knew the Oscars were on because whatever channel was on, your Sunday shows weren't coming on.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was an event. People would throw Oscar parties and treat it like the Super Bowl of movies. And it's turned into just such a goat rodeo, and the Academy of nominating movies that nobody has seen. Nobody cares. Nobody's in. Of course, we're also inundated with Hollywood every day in social media. It's not a special event anymore. So I had no idea it was happening.
Yeah, I didn't really either.
So, but and look, even if the joke was inappropriate, that would have made the news the next day. Is Chris Rock jokes about Jada Pinkett Smith's alopecia, and that may have made news for a short cycle, and everybody would have come down on Chris Rock about it being a tasteless joke.
I still don't think it would have gotten the traction that.
Oh Lord, no! There would be 100,000 memes about it.
Right.
It would have run. He would apologize. It'd be over.
Right.
And the guy who comes out a winner in this is the comedian.
But don't you, I feel like Hollywood really waited to gauge. I mean, I think they were all shocked by what happened because they weren't anticipating it. But I think that Hollywood as a whole waited to see where the public fell before they chose somebody to.
Oh, yeah, they did.
They didn't arrest him or even escort him out. Like, why? I mean, I would. It's supposed to be this like classy, well-mannered event, and he kind of crapped on that.
Well, yeah, Hollywood certainly stuck a wetted finger in the air to figure out which way the wind was blowing before they came out.
Right.
And then, when the public started coming, like, all right, well, we've got a discipline. I can't remember what the discipline thing is that they're going to do to Will Smith. I don't know. They could have thrown him out of the Academy. They could have taken his award away from him, which I don't agree with because
I don't either. He won.
Right. You can throw him out of the Academy. You can disinvite him from future award ceremonies. But I don't. They're not going to come down that hard on him.
What do you think about the arrest?
Well, as we've said many times, the police and the prosecutors do not work for the victims; they work for the state. And if there is evidence of a crime, you don't need a victim to. This whole idea of pressing charges, you don't need to press charges.
Yeah, but we see all the time where domestic violence stuff is tossed out all the time because a victim won't comply.
Well, that's because you don't have a witness to it. You have now probably billions of people around the world that have seen this 20 seconds at least. You get witnesses out the butt. I mean, everybody saw it live. There's a whole room full of people who saw it right in front of their eyes.
Right.
So, with domestic violence, you only have two witnesses there, the abuser and the abusee. And if the abusee refuses to cooperate, there's not a whole lot the state can do unless the police officer actually witnessed it.
Yeah. Unless your name's Gabby Petito.
I hate to compare a true horrible crime to slapping somebody, but
it's inappropriate. And if anybody else, the example you did give with a comedy show, if I smacked a comedian, what would happen to me?
Oh yeah, you're gonna wear some bracelets. I'd be hauled off.
I wouldn't see the rest of the show.
You certainly wouldn't see the rest of the show, and you'd probably get a ride in a police car.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, you're not going to get 10 years hard labor, but you're certainly going to be arrested for assault.
Unless your name's Ashlyn Griffin.
Yeah, unless your name's Ashlyn Griffin, then you're just supposed to take it. Good God, I'm going to bring that up. Speaking of train wrecks, Chris Carr craps the bed again.
He did. We've talked about this case a lot on the show because we talked about the March to the Sea and the family and the way, the prosecutor, who is the same one from the Ashlyn Griffin case, all that fun stuff. This is the trooper case where the grand jury returned a no bill of indictment after the district attorney jury shopped and all that. And there was a civil claim. They did that March to the Sea from Sylvania to Savannah to get the attention of federal prosecutors. And they very much made this about race because it was a white trooper and a black motorist. I guess you can call him that. He had a suspended license. I guess you're still a motorist, even if it's unlawful. But anyway, they sued the state. They actually announced a year and a half ago that they were planning on suing the state because, they have to give notice. You have to let the government know you're going to sue them, ask for permission, basically. And there was a settlement, and that's what, I think it was in late February that it was actually determined. But they decided that after the Attorney General and the Department of Administrative Services decided to settle with the surviving spouse of Julian Lewis for $4.8 million for his loss of life and punitive damages and all this crap. So obviously, I think this is complete and utter horse because Julian Lewis was a 60-year-old, at least 3-time convicted felon who at the time of his death was driving unlicensed in a car he didn't own, and the toxicology report showed that he had at least 2 illegal substances in his system. And he had been out of prison. He was out on parole. He'd been out for a month, maybe a little bit more. And so had he been detained, if he would have not fled from police, he would have gone back to jail and we would be footing his bill once again until he went to prison, where we would continue to foot the bill for him like we had done for a decent portion of his life. And so the life he had left as a convicted felon, it's not like he was this, the settlements are supposed to be based on economic loss and the value of the life that is lost and what you didn't get to provide. And they said that was $4.8 million. It's the largest in history in the last 32 years for the state. It is beyond the state's tort statute cap, and it's complete and utter horse.
Yeah, look, 4.8 million. If I'm killed wrongfully by the state, because of my age. He
wasn't killed wrongfully.
I understand. Okay, because of my age.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's something. But because of the fact that I do contribute to society, and obviously if Connie were to lose me, she would lose the income that comes from Dr. Cool and all that stuff.
Right.
So that all goes into the settlement. This is a guy who is at least a felon cubed.
Mm-hmm.
In and out of jail.
Parole.
Yeah, in and out of jail his entire life, on parole. And look.
Not gainfully employed.
Yeah, and he's the one that messed up.
He fled.
It's not a hard thing. Blue lights behind you, move to the right, roll down your window, wait. If you're wrongfully stopped, you take it to an attorney. But this guy fled. Now people can make whatever excuses they want for him, is because he's been in the system in and out. He was naturally afraid of police officers, and they shouldn't have chased.
I know. I'm just saying. I just want people to know that I think that is not correct. Okay.
You were fired the hell up today.
Do you know why? Let me, I'll just interrupt you for 1 second, because I wrote a column about this, which is why we're talking about it on the show, but it's infuriating. Like every time this case comes up, I feel full of rage about it because, one, I have attended every single proceeding since it happened. I've written about it. I've done my own research, and yet the mainstream media puts out this narrative. They don't mention any of the important factors. They just mention that a white man or a white trooper shot a black man who was going to the store to get his wife a soda, and he was just caught in this awful situation and then was gunned down and they said there was no chase and there was no this. Like, I know all those things are not true, and I know the people that matter know that that's not true, and the grand jurors obviously realize that that's not true. But I cannot stand the narrative, and we see it all the time, but this one, it bothers me more because I followed it so closely, and like I can confirm it's not true, and it's shoddy journalism, and people are stupid.
It's not journalism.
No, it's not.
It's aimed propaganda. Look, this goes, it goes back further, but in recent memory, the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman case, when they put the pictures out, mm-hmm. and they put the picture of Trayvon Martin as a 12-year-old kid from his school picture, and the booking photo for Zimmerman, and they pushed this narrative: a white man kills a black child, and they find out, well, he's actually Hispanic. Well, racist Hispanic kills a child. No, actually, he has done a lot of work with black youth. Took a black girl to prom. He's not racist at all, and the narrative fell apart. But they kept pushing this narrative, and because they had an agenda. These folks, the folks that are anti-police and anti-self-defense, they push this narrative, and they pick the worst heroes possible.
They do. And that's what you just mentioned is happening here too with the photos and everything. I mean, I use his trooper photo every single time because this happened in his capacity as a trooper. And he's not been convicted of anything, and so why would I use his mugshot? But everybody else, they use the damn mugshot every single time, and they use this photo of the guy, or they use the T-shirts that everyone's had printed with his photo on them. Where's his mugshot? And
yeah.
What's really sick about it is that, the people who are so like, oh, the family deserves every penny. Okay, well, first of all, you're misinformed, and thank you for announcing it to everybody. But let's just say that they are. Okay, nothing changes. So the Georgia State Patrol didn't change any policy. Yes, Jacob Thompson isn't a trooper anymore, but, I mean, you say it's a systemic problem and that it's, entire agencies and it's across, it's been going on for decades. So there's no change there. It doesn't make it like they're not changing any training. They're not changing better equipment. They haven't instituted body cameras. They haven't done, they don't have new equipment. They don't have more people working so that more than one person goes to a stop. None of these things. So what you're praising is hush money. And you said that in this case, you are okay with just letting it go because it was, they got $4.8 million. So we'll hush up for that. No problem.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pathetic.
Yeah. My husband, father, son's life was priced. Whoa, 4.8. Okay. And of course, the attorneys are the ones who win. Sure. They didn't even have to go to court, and they're going to get what's the standard now on a tort case? 33%.
Something. I asked that, but I was told between 30 and 40. So.
Yeah, I always thought it was a third.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the attorneys get to pocket at least a cool mil,
and
more than a cool mil.
Of course, I looked up other cases just to compare like ages and amounts. It's not. I didn't consider whether or not someone was found guilty or not. But we talked about it on the show, the Hector, I think it's Arreola case from Columbus. He had a little girl, I think she's under 10. So they got $500,000 and $490 of it went to her and $10,000 went to the administration of it for her. He was 30 years old. In Metter, a woman who left behind a child, she was just the passenger in a car where she died because of a police chase. She got $525. The highest one I saw was a 24-year-old from Henry County. He sued the police department and the county, and he got $3 million, or his family got $3 million. I mean, but Julian Lewis was 3 times his age.
This is $5 million almost to get it off the news.
Well, it's Chris Carr's fault because they didn't even bring the people involved. They didn't bring the agency. They didn't bring the trooper. None of those people were at the table. And you can bet your that for the next, let's see, today it's going to be April 4th when this show drops. So that's May, June, July, August. I don't know how many, 6 months till election. Every time I mention Chris Carr, I'm going to be like, yeah, did you hear that he signed off on a settlement for the family of a convicted felon who was fleeing from police while under the influence and putting all the people in the county at risk? Can you believe that? He gave him $5 million. Yeah, vote for Chris.
Yeah, this wasn't a judgment from a jury. This was settlement.
Yeah.
So it looks like he messed up Jackie Johnson's case too.
Yeah, this makes me sick because, well, I mean, we talked about it. It's kind of like Dick Donovan. Poor Mark Jones is the only one who I think was thoroughly charged. I've not been excited about Jackie Johnson's charges all along because it only dealt with the Ahmaud Arbery case. And I feel like if Chris had done his homework, he could have not only found more to charge her with in that case, but also he could have charged her on other cases. So her attorneys filed, I think the motion itself is like 20 pages, but they attached like 120 pages of exhibits and everything for Jackie Johnson. And they're claiming that they're asking a judge to throw out the case because it's politically motivated and it's a vendetta by the Glynn County commissioners. And she's basically claiming that the commissioners in Glynn County, because we know they had a horrible relationship. You know, she tried to dissolve the police department via the grand jury process and all this other stuff, that they lobbied the attorney general to come down and do this. And I mean, there's plenty of us who think that what he did do is wholly political because of the Ahmaud Arbery. I don't think that means she didn't do it. But if the motion that was filed is correct, it sounds like he didn't do it correctly. And so if that's the case, then her violation of oath by a public officer and her obstruction of law enforcement charges would be tossed out. The judge actually, ironically, is Judge Turner, who used to practice or preside over court in Bullitt County, and he's the assigned judge because obviously none of the judges can. But basically, like everything, the entire argument is that this is completely fabricated. It's just a hit job. There's no evidence. And the attorney general presented improperly sworn, quote, evidence to the grand jury over that 3-month period last summer to get the indictment that it wanted. And that like all the police and the ADAs were in agreement that it was self-defense, even up until Joyette Holmes was overseeing the case, before she got canned. But it's just not good. And in Chris Carr's office, just, it's all out there. Like everything she did is out there. No, it might not be by the AJC because they weren't boots on the ground, but the local entities like the Baxley Informer and the Brunswick News to some extent. And I mean, I covered it. There were other things that she did that she could be charged criminally for, and they opted not even to go into that. And so now we run the risk of it getting thrown out completely, which makes me want, I'll still always use her mugshot for forever and ever. I'll still wear my shirt with it on it. But if they would have had a laundry list of charges for the laundry list of unethical, illegal misdeeds that she's committed. Hell, you're not even allowed to appoint your own prosecutor. It says that in the law. Like, you don't get to just pick somebody. And she did that like 11 times. So charge her 11 times for either, misconduct or violating her oath in that capacity. Charge her with perjury because she's a liar.
Like she would you or me.
Like she has. Yeah. 5 Glynn County police officers. All the irony of her crying out that it is a hit job and political and impermissible and unjust and without evidence. Katie Sasser, John Hall Jr., Kelsey Rayner, Caroline Smalls, they would all enter the chat if they weren't dead, but they're dead. So they can't smirk. They can't laugh about it. They can't think it's ironic. And Chris Carr couldn't do this one thing. And you know damn well that if this gets tossed, he's not going to bring it back too close to the election, and he's not going to bring it back after an election no matter what. Which to me is an argument to vote for anybody but Chris Carr, because as much as it shouldn't be partisan, a Democrat or a Libertarian, and the Libertarian is Martin Cowan, those people are much more likely to come back and reassess the facts, because Chris Carr will be like, well, we're 4 years from another. I don't want to get into I don't want to spend my next term just going after Republicans. Okay, buddy, whatever. He sucks. He freaking sucks. He's awful.
This is a good time to remind you that these are our opinions and not those of anyone not on the show or any respective company for which we may work, own, or otherwise associate ourselves with on a regular or irregular basis. Also, you can find other episodes and relevant stories over at thegeorgiavirtue.com.
Yes, and also remember that you don't have to complete your ballot to submit it. So if Chris Carr does not have anybody on the May ballot, you don't have to put a box. If he didn't earn your vote, which he shouldn't, because if you're listening to this show, then you know better. Don't vote for him.
Well, he doesn't. He says he wants the votes of the people, but says he does not represent the people. So screw him.
Yes.
So as the show drops, it is sine die, or as we say in Georgia, sine die.
They're all wearing seersucker, which is a crime in itself.
That much seersucker in one room. So we'll have a legislative season wrap up next week. Sine die sometimes goes deep into the latest hours of, the day ends when the gavel hits. So
it's a legislative day.
Yep, 3:00 in the morning. So all the 39 previous legislative days, they could gavel out at 2:00 in the afternoon or gavel out at 10:00 in the morning so everybody can go to the national championship game. But this one can run can run late. So we won't have that information and won't be able to digest it in time, obviously before our next show. But what we do have a little information on is SB 319, quote unquote, constitutional carry. Which we all agree is not constitutional carry. It is permitless carry.
Constitutional carry would be striking the entire code section and being like, best of luck.
Right. It'd be, I mean, what are the laws governing carrying a hammer?
Shall not be infringed.
Right. That's enough for me. But that's not how it works. The Senate bill originally was fairly clean. It struck a bunch of stuff and put in lawful. I can't remember what the term was, but
weapon carrier.
Lawful,
it's like lawful carrying of a weapon or lawful weapon carrier. That's
right. So it took out everything that says permit holder and put in lawful weapon carrier. So essentially, if you're not prohibited from owning a firearm, do it to it. And of course, it still left all the off-limits things that are off-limits: schools, voting precincts, courthouses, mental institutions.
Private property still exists. Like if you don't want to allow them and you are a private entity, you can do that.
Although signs carry no weight in Georgia. If someone sees it, they can ask you to leave. And if you don't leave, you're guilty of trespassing.
Right.
But if you see if there's a no firearm sign, now places like Texas, at least it used to, that carried weight. You are now illegally carrying a firearm in a place that was posted not to have firearms.
Well, it's really only an issue if you get caught. And
so is smoking crack.
I know, but like you can't, even in Georgia under current law, they can't ask you to show proof of that you have a weapons carry permit. Like if you're somewhere, and let's say you try to go into a courthouse and you forgot that it's in your briefcase or whatever, they can tell you to leave, of course, and they can, charge you with a misdemeanor if they so choose, but they cannot ask you to produce proof that you have a weapons carry permit.
Now, it could be because I don't know, it's not federal. Because you go to county jail. If you carry a firearm, if you forget you have a gun in your backpack and you go through security at the airport, typically, if you have a carry permit, they'll give the gun back to you. You can go put it in your car, and then you get a huge fine from the FAA later. But they don't, if you're if you have a permit, typically they cut you loose, you go put the gun in your car, then hopefully still make your flight or take the next one.
Mm-hmm. That didn't happen to my friend.
I know. That particular person got arrested. And I think that was fairly recent after someone had a negligent discharge in the airport.
Yeah, but they took him to Clayton County.
Yeah, I don't.
By bus.
Of all the places to get locked up, I don't know between the jurisdictions if you want to go to Fulton County Jail or Clayton. I don't know.
Fulton all day long. Clayton, Victor Hill will strap you to a damn chair.
Well, this is true.
Allegedly.
This is true. Allegedly. So as it passed the Senate, it was fairly clean. Like anything else, it starts out a great idea, then it goes into the sausage grinder.
It was 25 pages, but it was mostly 25 pages of striking or, striking and replacing with the term that we mentioned. Like it wasn't a whole bunch of moving this, adding this, blah, 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 blah.
Right. So, but it was straightforward, easy. It was easy to understand. If you scroll through the original bill and you see underlined, you see where it strikes, it's fairly easy to follow. Then it goes into the sausage grinder. It goes over to the House. And, of course, the House passed their version virtually at the same time. But SB 319 is what is currently being worked on.
Correct. And the House, of course, did some committee manipulation. They added back there was a part about like when you can transport what is considered transporting in your home, your car, these types of things. Obviously, before that was with regard to a weapons carry license. So they struck all of that in the Senate. Well, the House added it back so basically they're saying like, we want to have a reference to it because it's the same. I equate it to when you're legalizing weed versus decriminalizing it. Like when you decriminalize something, you strike, there's no law and regulation about it. If you legalize it, the state is giving you the power to do it or have it or whatever the verb is. But we're supposed to be free people. So I think that decriminalization is the optimal.
Right. Our rights are endowed by our Creator, not the government. So it's a pointless since you no longer have to have a permit. It's pointless to say you can carry in your car. Well, no kidding. You can have it in your house. Really?
Yeah.
Like I said, the Senate version was cleaner. Now, the House has a lot more deal making that has to be done. Hell, the number of senators that co-sponsored the bill was enough to carry it. I mean,
that was because Kemp said, I need this to happen this election year. And so everyone was like, we'll do it.
I also think the last 3 years he's been not yet.
For sure. He couldn't do everything. And, there's been a lot less that I've written about this session. There's been a lot less that, and it's not because I'm not paying attention. It's because it's an election year and Republicans know that they're in for the fight of their freaking lives for their seats. And I mean, we're about to talk about the mental health bill, but really, I mean, I'm against handouts and I'm not against paying employees properly, but I'm against just shelling out bonuses. And I mean, the timing, like just all of this. So how many times do you want me to say I'm against that? I'm not just going to put out an article every single day about, I am against buying someone's vote, like $1,000 for law enforcement, $2,000 for teachers, $3,000 for teachers. Like, we're just throwing money at everything. We're not making veterans pay taxes now. Okay, well, that's noble, but if it's a burden on veterans, it's a burden on everyone. Like, it's the same concept we're just cookie cutter across and changing the demographic. And that's literally all they've done this session is that. And then mental health, constitutional carry, and then that damn tax return thing that they want me to be like, woo, thank you for my $250. Oh, by the way, enjoy your $5,000 raise that you gave yourself, regardless of whether or not the pay raise passes on the ballot. Congrats on your $5,000 raise that you gave yourself along with state employees. Congrats. Thanks for my $250.
Ballot initiatives rarely fail because they're written in such a way that, do you like puppies and babies?
Yeah. Do you want to prohibit the legislature from manipulating their salary? Restrict them. Yeah, I want to restrict them. I want to restrict them down to $0. I want to choke them out.
So yeah, there hasn't been anything groundbreaking here. I am kind of surprised they pushed through the pay raises in election year.
But I think it was smart at the end of it, because look at it's lost. It's hardly been talked about.
It's also, we're putting it to the voters.
Well, the $5,000 they got, and nobody's talking about that because it said state employees, and they don't know that includes every elected official. That is a state elected official, and then lawmakers. People don't know. That's why you got to read thegeorgiavirtue.com.
Exactly why you have to read. The chick over there writing is pretty good.
Yeah, she is. She doesn't sleep, so she really, if you read around 11 o'clock at night, it's usually more fierce.
Yeah, I get responses from you from messages, all hours. Like, what the hell are you doing up at 2?
It's convenient.
Writing?
Yes.
It's quiet. The dogs were asleep. I could write.
They're always asleep. Unless we're doing the podcast.
Yeah, I have to say, don't say that. Don't rouse them.
Yes.
Certainly don't mention them by name. There was something about service member renewal of concealed weapons permits that was struck. There was an amendment that I believe failed. I'm sure it failed because it's not in there now. But someone tried to sneak in mandatory background checks on all firearm transfers, which means if I were to sell to a private individual, I'd have to go to a federal firearms license and have them do a background check and transfer it, and then pay them whatever they charge for doing that. That failed, I think, pretty quickly. But these things get thrown in the sausage grinder, and what comes out is unrecognizable.
Mm-hmm. Or you ask yourself why? Like, why? Because sometimes, or a lot of times, they know stuff that we don't. And so we don't really understand why, they're taking something out or putting something in until it happens and someone's restricted or emboldened or whatever.
Yeah, and we were talking before the show. It's laborious to keep up with everything that's put in and taken out, because it's not just put on a single document. This is what's done is you have to read what went from 25 pages to 45 or 50 pages now.
No, it's still 25, but the way that it has. What annoys me is that they pay to have the site overhauled, and now let's say you go to a bill and it pops up and it has the name, the members, the committees that it went through, and then it has the status, all the actions, and then it has all the votes. Well, instead of I love open in new window. That is my favorite feature, because I don't think that you need to be able to look at things across the board at a minimum. On the news site, you can't share older versions of stuff. You can only share a link to the main landing page itself. You used to be able to share the individual vote. You can't do that anymore. You can share the page and it takes you to the vote if somebody knows where to click. I totally think that was by design. But it's like that throughout the whole thing. And they spent all this time and money redoing the site. And what would have been most beneficial for people and for lawmakers is to basically do what you do in Google Docs when you have a team working on something and someone can make notes version 1, you can color code it. Version 1 removed this phrase and leave it in there the entire time. You can still have all the versions like they have now, but have a tracked bill that shows you arrow, this was struck in this version. This was, put back in there by the House on this date, and it was taken out again, so that people can see how it moved. If you have a 2-page bill, obviously it's super simple. Well, I say that, but there's been times when I've been like, what the hell is different? But when a shorter bill, it is a lot easier to compare. You can go line by line. They're numbered. But when you have 25 pages and they've moved sections and deleted and stricken and strucken and expletives that rhyme with strucken, the entire thing, you have no idea what changed from the beginning, and you already aren't privy to why. So the least they could do is tell us what. Right.
Now, the interesting thing on this is the bill will become law upon signature, or if it just becomes law, if the governor were not to sign it and it just went through and became law, which is not going to happen.
No, he's definitely going to. There'll be a ceremony.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be a bunch of people standing around him, 50 pens to sign his name.
While Park Cannon bangs on the door in the corner.
Yeah, while Park Cannon bangs on the door in the corner. Nice callback. Mm-hmm. It's like they never learn that cameras are everywhere. Georgia GOP House leader gleefully said Republicans never bring any Democratic bills to the floor and that she kills Medicaid expansion every day.
I forgot this was on there. Yeah, Jody Lott, she's one of the speaker's lackeys. I think she's running unopposed in the primary and the general. She's from the Augusta, greater metropolis of Augusta. But she said this to this girl who writes for I don't know what it's that Act Blue organization. Like, they want to say that they're not they're independent. They are independent, I guess. They're not like owned and operated by anybody or any, but they're super liberal. She recorded it on her phone in a conversation in a public place. It wasn't like it was in the office at the Capitol. I mean, you can see there's like a TV and it's the Undercurrent website, I guess. But she considers themselves like a grassroots journalism organization. But their hyperlink to do anything is secure.actblue.com. That's their donation site. So,
yeah, and Representative Renita Shannon jumped on it, which is good for her because it is certainly a.
Yeah, but it's because she's running for state office.
I know, but I'm saying I'm not saying I'm glad. I'm saying it was a smart political move too, because that goes to her base that Republicans are trying to take away your health care. What's the quote? Is it the quote from the original quote is, "At every health committee, I hit my button and I'm just like, hammer them every time." So then Representative Renita Shannon says in a tweet linking this to Jody Lott, "We must elect leaders in #Georgia who understand that access to health care is life-saving. Bragging about preventing access to health care for low-income Georgians is disgusting." Head to her webpage and all that stuff.
She's not wrong. She's not. It's not about bragging about preventing access, though. It's about preventing the free flow of ideas and discussion. And also they do bring Democratic bills to the floor. What they do is they put their own names on them because they're like, "Oh, that was a good idea." Because they're not that different, because they all vote together most of the time. But what she's bragging about is the fact that she silences the other side based on their political affiliation. And nobody, of course, we're not going to harp on that. We're going to talk about, how she's making low-income people die because apparently...
Because that is what sells.
Oh, well, actually, low-income Democrats, I'm sorry. Low-income Republicans, well, they're effed.
Yeah, because that's what sells. It's just like the "Don't Say Gay" bill in Florida and Disney losing their mind is they've dubbed it "Don't Say Gay." No one's actually read the bill. Same thing here is they're not going to look at the actual substance of what's happening. Is this makes a very quick thing to say Republicans are out to kill you. Vote for me. I'm looking out for you. They want to kill you. A quick overview of mental health parity legislation passed. Probably flew through passage 54-0 in the Senate, 166-0 in the House.
It did, and that was not the first round of it. This is the Speaker's initiative, 1013. Obviously, everyone gets the reference. One of the reasons that it's a very big bill. I think by default, there will be some decent things in there. I think no matter what they do, there will be some really bad things that they think are a good idea now or that read well, but are in practicality not a good idea. And the reason that I have mostly refrained from commenting on it is because, not because I don't care, because I very much do. I mean, we've all seen horrible cases where bureaucratic red tape prevented somebody from getting the care that they need, whether through law enforcement or just the system. But decades ago, we made a concerted effort to get government out of mental health for a reason, because the pendulum was so far the other direction. And it was all in the name of safety and caring for people and people not having the resources and all this. And we found out a lot later and after a lot of harm that we were doing some inhumane things and some things that make everybody uncomfortable. And I guess I am just super cautious about like where this is all headed, because you can talk about how you're going to just make it so that they've got to cover mental health care the same way they cover, quote, regular physical health care. But this is going to grow like every bill does, every law. It will get bigger every year. We didn't talk about, we didn't ultimately put in any changes to how police involuntarily commit people, but that will come. Like it always does. All we ever do in our state and generally is swing back and forth across the pendulum or across the spectrum, and we just do it incrementally. And while like I said, I think there's probably some good things in it, but I'm just super concerned, and I'm really grossed out.
It's going to make insurance more expensive, and it may cause some insurers not to participate in Georgia.
Or not. Yeah. Well. Yeah. They'll find a reason not to cover you. Like.
Oh, yeah. But look, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest did more to damage mental health care in this country than any single piece of media. Mm-hmm. Between the book and the movie, and this idea of Nurse Ratched and abusing of patients did more to damage it, because the knee-jerk reaction to that was starting to let people who should not be operating in a free society on the street.
Right.
And we do need a mechanism for involuntary committal. We have people in this state that are fed up with whatever problem their family member has, and they take them, they drop them off the hospital because they just drop them off. And they don't have the ability to do anything with them, so they drop them off. There's not a whole lot that we can do with them. And there are people that should be committed. There are people that should not operate in a free society, that are incapable of operating within a free society.
But who decides that? And that's a whole nother show. And I know we're like literally at the last couple minutes, but like who decides that? And how do you make a blanket protocol so that you don't improperly commit somebody who shouldn't be, and they have no remedy?
Is you put an appeal process in. I don't know how you have. There has to be a way to appeal out of it. That you've been improperly committed, that this judge didn't know what they were doing, that this psychologist was wrong, and have somebody independent. I don't know, but I know
that's putting the burden on you to prove you're sane.
Well, I understand. Well, it's just like appealing any a conviction. Is now the burden now on the person convicted to prove that the trial was improper or whatever.
Right, but that's else. Through a trial and an adjudication process where your rights are preserved. When you're committed, you're just committed. Like someone takes something before a judge and they sign an affidavit, and the judge is like, "Oh, okay, well, we're praying for you. Here you go." I mean, don't get me wrong. I agree. There are people who are dangerous to themselves and others, but.
Well, and it's really sad too. I've got a friend whose wife has dementia, mm-hmm. and he's been trying to get her into an institution. The hoops you have to go through. And look, he lives out on a mountain, and he can't sleep. And they're an older couple. They can't sleep. He can't sleep because every time she moves, he thinks she's going to wander out. And if she just wanders out in her nightgown and just wanders into the woods, she's gone.
And he can't chain her to the bed.
Right. And certainly with being in sort of a cabin home, being a wood home, you don't want to put double locks on the doors in case there's a fire. Mm-hmm. So he's in this horrible position where he's doing everything he can to get help, and all he catches is red tape. And this is a year ago, the last time I visited with him. So hopefully that's resolved. But you do have people that she doesn't have capacity. She's super, super sweet. Her personality is still intact, but she doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's slowly killing him, and he's not in the best of health either. And he's left with no resources to deal with it.
The system fails people. I'm super concerned about what happens.
Yeah, what the solution is. Right. Yeah. Well, that we can agree on, is that the solution a lot of times is worse.
Yeah.
Every time government tries to fix something, it's like the Midas touch. Everything except in reverse. Everything they touch turns to crap. All right, Jessica, how about your closing thought?
Well, we are super short on time. So it's your birthday today, the day that the show is dropping. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So sorry you're so old.
45.
Wow.
I know.
Well, what kind of discounts do you get for 45?
I still have to wait for November 11th to go get my free meal at Shoney's.
Oh, gosh, darn. Okay, well, fair enough. That's funny.
Well, thank you very much, and thank everybody for listening. Again, next week we're going to be looking at doing more of a legislative wrap up because so much can change up until whenever they gavel tonight or tomorrow morning, whenever they hit the gavel. So, thank you very much, Jessica Szilagyi, my partner in this endeavor. Thank you, Eric Cumby, who takes our audio, makes it something that you can actually listen to. I'm Dave Roberts. We'll talk to you next week.
Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.